Maria sat inside the wedding hall with her hands folded tightly on her lap. The soft music playing in the background felt like knives inside her chest. White flowers covered every corner of the room. Crystal lights sparkled above the guests. People smiled, laughed, and took pictures as if nothing terrible had happened. But Maria could barely breathe. At the front of the hall stood Daniel, the man she had loved for 5 years. The man who once promised to marry her. And standing beside him in a white wedding dress was her stepsister, Nina. Maria stared at them quietly while whispers moved across the hall like cold wind. That's the sister he left. I heard Nina stole him. Poor Maria. She looks so calm. She's probably dying inside. Maria heard every word. Still, she refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. 3 weeks ago, her life had still made sense. She had been planning flower designs for her wedding. She had been tasting cakes with Daniel. She had been laughing with Nina late at night, sharing secrets like real sisters. Then one evening, everything shattered. Maria had returned home early from work because she forgot an important file. She remembered opening the front door quietly. She remembered hearing laughter upstairs. Then she remembered hearing Daniel's voice. Soft. Intimate. The kind of voice he only used with her. At first, she smiled because she thought he was preparing a surprise. But when she opened Nina's bedroom door, her entire world stopped. Daniel and Nina froze. Nina's lipstick was smeared. Daniel's shirt buttons were open. Maria's hands started shaking so badly that the file fell from her fingers. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Then Nina stood up slowly. It's not what you think, she whispered. But it was exactly what Maria thought. Daniel stepped forward quickly. Maria, listen. Don't touch me. Her voice had sounded strange that night. Broken. Like glass cracking underwater. Maria remembered staring at her own sister in disbelief. Since when? Neither of them answered. That silence hurt more than the betrayal itself. Maria left the house that night and cried inside her car until sunrise. But the pain was only beginning. The next morning, her mother called her. Maria, don't create problems for this family. Maria almost laughed from shock. Problems, she whispered. Mom, Daniel cheated on me with Nina. Her mother sighed heavily. People make mistakes. Mistakes. That single word burned Maria deeply. Days later, more lies spread through the family. Nina claimed Maria had become too focused on work. Daniel claimed their relationship was already failing. Some relatives even blamed Maria for not keeping her man happy. Every conversation felt like poison. And slowly, Maria realized something horrifying. Nobody cared about the truth. They only cared about avoiding shame before the wedding guests. Then came the final blow. Nina announced she was marrying Daniel instead. The same wedding date. The same wedding hall. The same decorations Maria had spent months planning herself. Maria felt sick when she saw the invitation card. At first, she refused to attend. But her mother begged her. Please don't embarrass this family. That sentence destroyed something inside her. So now, here she was. Watching another woman marry the man she once loved. Even worse, that woman was her own sister. Maria lowered her eyes before the tears could fall. Then suddenly, she felt someone watching her. Not with pity. Not with mockery. Something else. She slowly looked toward the groom's side. Among the wealthy groomsmen sat a tall Korean man in a dark suit. Calm. Expressionless. Powerful. His name was June. Maria had noticed him earlier because he looked different from everyone else. While others laughed loudly and showed off expensive watches, he sat quietly, observing everything. And at that moment, his eyes were fixed only on her. Not the bride. Not the wedding. Her. Maria quickly looked away, uncomfortable. But she could still feel his gaze. Steady. Careful. Almost protective. For the first time that entire day, someone seemed to notice her pain without enjoying it. And somehow, that frightened her even more. The wedding ceremony continued like a beautiful nightmare. Maria sat still while the pastor spoke about love, trust, and loyalty. Every word felt cruel. Daniel slipped a ring onto Nina's finger while guests clapped loudly. Maria remembered the day Daniel once held her hand under the rain and whispered, "No matter what happens, I'll always choose you." Now he could not even look at her. Coward. The thought entered her mind before she could stop it. Maria swallowed the pain quietly. She refused to let anyone see her break. Beside the stage, photographers moved around excitedly. The lights flashed over Nina's smiling face. Maria noticed how proudly Nina showed off the large diamond ring, as if stealing another woman's life was some kind of victory. Then Nina suddenly looked toward Maria. For a second, guilt appeared in her eyes. But it disappeared quickly, replaced by satisfaction. That hurt even more. The ceremony finally ended, and guests moved toward the grand reception hall. Maria tried slipping out quietly before anyone could stop her. But her aunt grabbed her arm. "Maria dear, you should smile more," she said loudly. "People are starting to think you're jealous." Several guests turned to look. Heat rushed into Maria's face. "Jealous?" She almost laughed. Instead, she forced a small smile. "I'm fine." "You're such a strong woman," another guest added with fake sympathy. Maria hated those words. Strong people still bled inside. As she walked toward the exit, she suddenly bumped into someone. A firm hand caught her before she lost balance. "I'm sorry," Maria whispered automatically. Then she looked up. It was him, the Korean man. June. Up close, he looked even more intimidating. Tall, sharp jawline, dark eyes that missed nothing. But his voice was surprisingly gentle. "You don't need to apologize," he said softly. His English carried a slight Korean accent. Maria stepped back quickly. "I'm okay." June studied her face carefully. Not rudely. Almost like he was trying to understand something. "You have not eaten anything since morning." Maria blinked in surprise. "How do you know?" "I notice things." His answer was simple, but something about it made her chest tighten strangely. Before she could respond, Daniel suddenly appeared beside them. His face looked tense. "June," Daniel forced a smile. "You finally met Maria." June's expression remained calm. "Yes." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "This is my former fiancé." The words sounded uncomfortable coming from him. Maria noticed the guilt in his eyes immediately. Good. He deserved to feel uncomfortable. June looked at Daniel for a long second before speaking again. "I know." A strange silence followed. Daniel cleared his throat. "The dinner is starting soon." Maria immediately shook her head. "I should go home." Her voice came out tired. Daniel looked relieved and guilty at the same time. But before anyone could speak again, Nina walked toward them. Her expensive white dress sparkled under the lights. She wrapped her arm possessively around Daniel. "There you are," she said sweetly before noticing June. Instantly, her entire face changed. "Oh, Mr. Park." Maria noticed the sudden excitement in Nina's voice. June gave a polite nod. Nothing more. Nina smiled brightly. "It means so much that someone as important as you attended our wedding." Maria frowned slightly. "Important?" Before she could think deeper, Nina turned toward her with fake concern. "Maria, are you leaving already?" Maria looked directly into her eyes. "Yes." "Oh no," Nina said dramatically. "People may misunderstand." Maria almost lost control right there. Misunderstand? What exactly was left to misunderstand? But again, she stayed calm. That calmness irritated Nina more than anger would have. June noticed it too. Maria could feel it. He watched every expression carefully, every hidden tension, every lie beneath the smiles. Then Nina suddenly grabbed Daniel's hand tightly. "Mr. Park owns Myri Holdings," she said proudly to Maria. "One of the biggest companies in Korea." Maria blinked. She knew that name. Everyone did. Myri Holdings was worth billions. Hotels, technology, fashion, real estate. The company was everywhere. Maria slowly looked back at June. This quiet man beside her. Was that billionaire? But June did not look impressed by his own wealth. Instead, his eyes remained fixed on her face. Careful, curious, almost concerned. Then Nina laughed lightly. "Daniel talks about wanting to work with Myri someday." Maria saw Daniel straighten immediately. like a man desperate to impress someone powerful. But June barely reacted. Instead, he asked Maria quietly, "How will you get home?" The question surprised everyone, especially Nina. "I'll call a taxi," Maria answered softly. June glanced outside at the heavy rain pouring through the glass walls. "No," he said calmly. "I will drive you." Silence. Complete silence. Nina's smile froze instantly. Daniel looked shocked. Even Maria herself stared at him in confusion. "You don't have to." "I know," June interrupted gently. "I want to." For the first time since the betrayal began, someone chose her. Not out of pity. Not out of guilt. Simply because they wanted to. And somehow, that small moment hurt her heart more than the wedding itself. Rain poured heavily outside the wedding hall. Thunder rumbled across the dark sky as guests rushed under umbrellas and expensive cars lined up near the entrance. Maria stood frozen beside June. She could still feel everyone staring at them, especially Nina. Her smile had completely disappeared now. "Mr. Park, you really don't need to trouble yourself," Nina said quickly. "We can arrange a driver for Maria." June did not even look at her. "I already offered." His voice was calm, but final. Nobody argued after that. Maria noticed how even Daniel became nervous around him. That surprised her. Daniel had always acted confident around wealthy people. He loved showing off and trying to impress important men. But around June, Daniel suddenly looked small. June picked up his car keys slowly. "We should leave before the rain becomes worse." Maria hesitated. Part of her wanted to refuse. Another part of her desperately wanted to escape that room before she completely broke down. So she nodded softly. "Okay." As they walked toward the exit, whispers followed behind them immediately. "Why is Mr. Park leaving with her? Does he know what happened? I heard he never pays attention to women. Maybe he feels sorry for her." Maria lowered her head. She hated pity. But strangely, June never made her feel pitiful. Outside, cold rain touched Maria's skin. A black luxury car waited near the entrance. The driver quickly stepped out and opened the back door respectfully. But June stopped him. "I'll drive." The driver looked surprised but bowed immediately. "Yes, sir." Maria quietly entered the car. The soft leather seats smelled expensive and clean. Warm air surrounded her instantly, protecting her from the cold storm outside. June entered from the other side moments later. The door closed softly. And suddenly, everything became quiet. No whispers. No judgment. No fake smiles. Just rain hitting the windows. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Maria stared outside while city lights blurred through the storm. Her chest still hurt badly. The wedding scenes kept replaying inside her mind over and over again. Daniel smiling at Nina. Guests whispering. Her mother avoiding her eyes. The humiliation felt endless. Then suddenly, June spoke. "You're very strong." Maria gave a tired laugh. "No, I'm just too embarrassed to cry in public." June glanced at her briefly before looking back at the road. "That is not weakness." Maria stayed silent. His voice carried no fake sympathy, only honesty. After a while, he asked quietly, "Why did you still attend the wedding?" Maria swallowed hard. "My mother begged me to." "And you agreed?" "Yes, even though it hurt you." Maria looked down at her hands. "Yes." June became quiet again. Then he said softly, "You love deeply." The words caught her off guard. Nobody had ever described her that way before. Most people called her too emotional or too soft. But somehow, when June said it, it sounded beautiful instead of foolish. Maria looked at him carefully for the first time. He drove calmly despite the heavy rain. One hand rested lightly on the steering wheel. His expression remained unreadable, but his eyes looked thoughtful, like he was constantly observing the world quietly. "You barely talked at the wedding," Maria said softly. "I dislike loud people." That almost made her smile. "Almost. Then you must have hated today." "A little." His serious answer surprised a small laugh out of her. The moment the sound escaped her lips, both of them seemed surprised. It was the first time she had laughed since discovering the betrayal. June noticed it too. And, for the first time, The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Not a full smile, but close. Maria looked away quickly before her heart could react strangely. The rain continued falling heavily. Then June suddenly asked, "What do you want now?" Maria blinked. "What do you mean?" "Your future." She stared ahead quietly. Nobody had asked her that since everything collapsed. Everyone only cared about the scandal, the shame, the wedding. Nobody cared about her dreams anymore. Maria answered honestly, "I don't know." June nodded slowly. "That is okay." She looked at him again. "In Korea," he continued quietly, "my grandmother used to say pain removes fake people from your life." Maria listened carefully. She also said, he added, empty space allows better things to enter. Something about those words touched her deeply. Because right now, her life felt completely empty. The car finally stopped in front of her apartment building. Maria looked outside slowly. She suddenly realized she did not want the quiet moment to end. That scared her. She barely knew this man. Yet sitting beside him felt safer than being with her own family. June turned off the engine. Rain still tapped softly against the windows. "Thank you," Maria whispered sincerely. June looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and handed her a simple black business card. No flashy gold letters. Just his name, Park June, and a phone number. Maria stared at it nervously. June spoke softly. "If you ever need help." He paused briefly. "Call me." Maria's heart tightened unexpectedly. Not because of the card. Not because he was rich. But because for the first time in weeks, someone sounded genuine. No manipulation. No hidden motives. Just quiet sincerity. Maria slowly accepted the card. Their fingers brushed lightly for half a second. A strange feeling passed through her chest immediately. Warm. Dangerous. Alive. Neither of them spoke after that. But as Maria stepped out into the rain and looked back once more, she noticed something important. June was still watching her. Very carefully. Like meeting her tonight had changed something inside him too. Maria could not sleep that night. Rain continued falling outside her apartment window while the wedding replayed inside her mind again and again. Nina's smile. Daniel's silence. The whispers. The humiliation. But mixed between those painful memories now was another face. June. His calm voice echoed softly inside her thoughts. "You love deeply. No hidden motives. Call me if you need help." Maria sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the black business card in her hand. Park June. Simple. Elegant. Powerful. She had searched his name online after coming home, and the results shocked her. Articles. Magazine covers. Business awards. Photographs beside presidents and celebrities. People called him the young lion of Korea, the billionaire who built an empire before 35, the cold prince of Myri Holdings. One article even said he almost never attended social events unless absolutely necessary. So why had he attended Daniel's wedding? And more importantly, why had he noticed her? Maria sighed and placed the phone down. This was dangerous thinking. She had already lost enough because of love. She refused to become foolish again. The next morning, sunlight entered her apartment softly. For a few peaceful seconds, Maria forgot everything. Then reality returned. The wedding. The betrayal. Her ruined engagement. Pain settled back inside her chest immediately. Her phone buzzed on the table. She ignored it at first. Then it buzzed again. And again. Finally, she checked it. Dozens of messages flooded the screen. Family group chats. Friends asking questions. Relatives pretending to care. Then one message made her freeze. "Nina, can we talk?" Maria stared at the message for a long time before locking her phone again. No. She had nothing left to say. A few hours later, Maria forced herself to leave the apartment for groceries. The moment she entered the supermarket, she felt people staring. Two women near the fruit section whispered while looking at her phone screen. Maria instantly understood. Someone had posted wedding pictures online, probably with captions full of fake happiness. She quickly grabbed her items and headed toward the cashier. But as she reached for her wallet, another customer accidentally bumped into her hard. Her groceries fell everywhere. Eggs cracked across the floor. Juice spilled. Oh my goodness, the cashier gasped. Maria closed her eyes briefly. Of course. Of course today would become worse. I'm sorry, the man muttered carelessly before walking away without helping. Maria knelt down quickly, trying to clean the mess before tears could embarrass her again. Then suddenly, another pair of hands reached down beside her. Long fingers carefully picked up the fallen groceries. Maria looked up instantly and froze. June. He wore a simple black coat, yet somehow people still moved around him carefully, sensing his presence immediately. What are you doing here? Maria asked softly in shock. June handed her the unbroken items calmly. Shopping. Maria almost laughed. A billionaire shopping alone in a regular supermarket felt impossible. June glanced at the broken eggs. You should let me help. I can clean it myself. I know. Again, that same calm answer. Never insulting her pride. Never making her feel weak. The cashier suddenly recognized him. Her eyes widened dramatically. Oh my God, are you really? June looked at her politely. Yes. The cashier immediately straightened nervously. Several nearby shoppers began whispering excitedly. Maria suddenly felt uncomfortable again. Attention followed this man everywhere. June seemed used to it. He looked at Maria quietly. Did you eat breakfast? Maria blinked. Why did he always ask things like that? Yes. You're lying. Her eyes widened slightly. How can you tell? You become quieter when you are sad. The simple observation hit her deeply. Most people only noticed her beauty, or her kindness, or her silence. But somehow, June noticed her moods, her pain, the small details nobody else cared enough to see. Maria looked away quickly. I'm fine. June studied her face for a second before speaking again. In Korea, people say hurt people work too hard pretending they are okay. Maria swallowed hard, because that was exactly what she was doing. Before she could answer, two young women suddenly approached nervously. Mr. Park, one whispered excitedly, can we please take a picture with you? Maria immediately stepped back, wanting to disappear quietly. But June surprised everyone. No. The girls looked disappointed. Then he added calmly, I am spending time with someone important. Maria froze. The girls immediately looked at her differently now. Not with pity. With curiosity. Almost envy. After they walked away, Maria stared at June in disbelief. You didn't have to say that. It is true. His answer came naturally, as if he genuinely believed it. Maria's heart beat strangely for a moment. Dangerously. Then June noticed the heavy grocery bags in her hands. I'll carry those. You really don't need to. I know. Maria finally smiled a little despite herself. And seeing that tiny smile, June's eyes softened quietly, like it was exactly what he had hoped for all along. Over the next few weeks, Maria kept telling herself one thing. Do not fall too fast. Do not trust too easily. Do not let another man become your weakness. But somehow, June kept entering her life quietly, like warm sunlight slipping through closed curtains. Never forcing. Never rushing. Just there. Sometimes he sent short messages. Did you eat? How was work? Rest early tonight. Simple things. But Maria slowly realized something painful. Daniel had never cared about the small things. With Daniel, love had always been loud promises and beautiful pictures. But with June, love felt quiet, gentle, safe. One evening, Maria stayed late at work finishing a difficult project. Her office building slowly became empty as employees left one by one. By the time she checked the clock, it was already past 9 p.m. Maria sighed tiredly and packed her bag. The moment she stepped outside the building, she froze. A familiar black car waited near the sidewalk, and leaning against it calmly was June. Her heart skipped immediately. What are you doing here? She asked, trying not to sound too happy. June straightened slightly. You said your office finishes late on Thursdays. Maria blinked. He remembered that? I didn't want you going home alone. The city lights reflected softly in his dark eyes. Maria's chest tightened warmly. Nobody had ever shown care this gently before. You waited all this time? June looked confused by the question. Yes. Maria could not explain why that affected her so deeply. Maybe because Daniel rarely waited for her, rarely listened carefully, rarely noticed things. But June remembered everything. Even small details she forgot mentioning herself. As they drove through the city, soft Korean music played quietly inside the car. The atmosphere felt peaceful, comfortable. Maria rested her head lightly against the seat. You work too much, June said suddenly. Maria smiled faintly. I need the distraction. June glanced at her briefly. You still think about them often. It was not a question. Maria looked outside quietly. Yes. June nodded slowly. I understand. No, you don't, she whispered before thinking. Silence filled the car. Maria instantly regretted speaking harshly. But then June surprised her. You are right. She looked at him. I do not know your exact pain, he continued calmly. But I know betrayal. Maria's eyes widened slightly. For the first time since meeting him, she saw sadness pass through his face. Real sadness. My father cheated on my mother for many years, he said quietly. In public, they looked perfect. At home, they were strangers. Maria listened silently. My mother stayed because of reputation, he added. She slowly became unhappy all the time. His fingers tightened slightly around the steering wheel. When she died, she told me something important. Maria's voice softened. What did she say? June looked ahead quietly. She said, never stay where love becomes painful. The words settled deeply inside Maria's heart. Because that was exactly what she had done with Daniel. Stayed too long. Ignored too many signs. Accepted too little love. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then softly, Maria reached over and touched his hand. Just lightly. A simple gesture. But June immediately looked at her. And something changed between them in that moment. The air suddenly felt warmer. Closer. More dangerous. Maria slowly pulled her hand back, her heart beating fast. But June's eyes stayed on her for one extra second before returning to the road. And for the first time, Maria realized something terrifying. She was beginning to need him too. Days passed. Then weeks. And slowly, Maria began smiling again. Really smiling. At work, her coworkers noticed immediately. You look happier lately, one woman teased. Maria denied it quickly. But deep down, she knew it was true. June became part of her daily life naturally. Morning messages. Lunch calls. Quiet evening drives. Sometimes they sat together without speaking much at all. And strangely, those silent moments felt the most intimate. One Saturday evening, June invited Maria to a small Korean restaurant hidden beside the river. Warm lights glowed softly inside. The smell of grilled meat and spices filled the air. Maria looked around curiously. This place is beautiful. June nodded. My grandmother used to bring me here when I first moved to the city. Maria smiled softly. That means it's important. Yes. His eyes met hers quietly. That is why I brought you. Her heartbeat stumbled again. As dinner continued, Maria laughed more than she had in months. June watched her carefully each time she smiled. Like he treasured every piece of happiness returning to her. After dinner, they walked slowly beside the river. Cool wind moved gently through Maria's hair. The city lights reflected beautifully across the water. Everything felt peaceful. Then June suddenly stopped walking. Maria turned toward him. His expression looked calmer than usual, but his eyes carried nervousness for the first time. Maria. Her heart instantly began racing. Yes. June stepped slightly closer. When I first saw you at that wedding. He paused quietly. You looked like someone carrying pain alone. Maria swallowed softly. I wanted to protect you, he admitted. But somewhere along the way. His gaze softened deeply. I started looking forward to every moment with you. Maria's breath caught. The world around them suddenly felt distant. Only him remained. June looked directly into her eyes. I know you are still healing, he said carefully. So I do not want to pressure you. His voice became gentler. But if you are willing. He held her gaze steadily. "I would like to take you on a real date." Maria stared at him silently. Her heart felt full and terrified at the same time, because after everything she lost, she never expected love to find her again. Especially like this. Softly, patiently, safely, and standing there beside the river, with a billionaire who saw her worth before she could see it herself. Maria felt her broken heart begin beating differently again. Maria did not answer right away. The river wind moved softly around them, carrying quiet sounds of the city behind. June stood patiently. He did not rush her, did not repeat himself. He only waited. That patience shook Maria more than any loud promise ever had. Because Daniel used to demand answers quickly, used to pressure her feelings, used to make love feel like a race she was always losing. But June simply waited like her heart mattered. Finally, Maria spoke in a soft voice. Yes, one word, but it carried everything she had survived. Pain, fear, hope. June blinked slightly, like he needed a moment to believe it. Then, very slowly, his face softened. A real smile appeared. Small, but warm. "Okay," he said quietly. And that was the beginning. Not a storm, not a rush. Just something gentle growing. Days turned into months. And for the first time in a long time, Maria stopped feeling like she was surviving. She started living again. June never tried to replace her past. He never spoke badly about Daniel. He never used her pain against her. Instead, he helped her rebuild herself. Maria returned to her design career with new confidence. June supported her silently in the background. When she doubted herself, he reminded her calmly. "You are not starting over. You are continuing forward." When she felt afraid of love again, he simply said, "I will go at your pace." And slowly, Maria healed. Meanwhile, far away from their quiet peace, another story was breaking apart. Nina and Daniel's marriage. At first, they looked like a perfect couple online. Luxury photos, fake smiles, beautiful dresses, expensive trips. But behind closed doors, things were very different. Daniel changed after the wedding. He became restless, unhappy. Regret slowly ate him inside. He realized too late that Nina had not loved him. She had loved the idea of winning, the idea of status, the idea of taking something from Maria. And now that she had it, she did not know how to keep it. Arguments became daily. Jealousy grew fast. Nina checked Daniel's phone constantly. Daniel started avoiding her completely. Their home, once filled with celebration, turned cold. One night, Daniel sat alone in their living room staring at an old photo. It was Maria, smiling softly. That was the moment everything hit him. Not anger, not jealousy, regret. Deep and painful. He whispered to himself, "I lost the wrong woman." But by then, Maria was already gone from that version of his life forever. Years passed, and the world changed again. Myri Holdings announced its biggest global expansion. News spread everywhere, and with it came a shocking revelation. June Park was not just a billionaire. He was now one of the most powerful business leaders in the world. But none of that changed how he treated Maria. He still looked at her the same way, like she was the most important thing in his life. One spring morning, Maria stood in front of a mirror inside a grand bridal room. Soft sunlight poured through white curtains. She wore a simple silk robe, but outside, the world was waiting. The biggest wedding of the year, maybe even the decade. Guests had flown in from every country. Royal families, business leaders, celebrities. The media called it the billionaire's wedding to the woman he chose in silence. Maria's hands trembled slightly, but not from fear, from emotion. Because she remembered where she started. A broken engagement, a stolen love, a family that did not protect her. And now, this. A soft knock came at the door. A staff member entered carefully. "It's time." Maria nodded slowly. When she stepped outside, she saw it. A breathtaking garden filled with white flowers, gold lights, and soft music. A long aisle stretched toward a glowing altar. People stood in silence as she appeared. Not because of her wealth. Not because of fame. But because of her story. The woman who was once humiliated now walked with dignity and peace. And at the end of the aisle stood June, waiting, calm as always. But his eyes were different today. Full of emotion. Full of love. Maria walked slowly toward him. Every step felt like healing. Every breath felt like freedom. And when she finally reached him, June gently took her hand. "I told you I would not rush you," he whispered. Maria smiled softly through tears. "And you didn't." The ceremony was simple, beautiful, powerful. When they said their vows, June's voice never shook. But Maria's heart did. Because for the first time, she was not chosen as second option. She was chosen first. Forever. The moment they kissed, the world erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Music rose. But Maria only heard one thing. Her own heart finally at peace. After the wedding, news spread everywhere. Social media exploded. Articles filled every platform. Billionaire marries woman who was once publicly humiliated. From betrayal to billion-dollar love story. And Nina saw everything. She sat alone in her home scrolling through her phone. Her marriage was already collapsing. Daniel had left the house days earlier. And now, she saw Maria. Radiant. Happy. Loved. Standing beside the man she had never managed to impress. For the first time, Nina did not feel victory. She felt emptiness, regret, and loss. Because she realized something too late. She did not win love. She only destroyed it. And in doing so, she lost everything that truly mattered. Meanwhile, Maria stood beside June at their wedding reception, smiling softly as he held her hand. The wind moved gently through the evening sky. Lights shimmered across the garden. June leaned closer and whispered, "Are you happy?" Maria looked at him. Not at her past. Not at her pain. Only him. "Yes," she said softly. And this time, it was real. Because sometimes, losing the wrong person is what leads you to the love you were always meant to find. Hey besties, if you enjoyed this story, please drop your thoughts in the comment section, share with friends and loved ones, and subscribe for more amazing stories to come.